2.9 million and 13.2 million less than budgeted, respectively. For the period under review, sir, the state-owned enterprises performed poorly when compared to 2019, as many of the reforms introduced, such as the airline travel and development fee, have suffered due to COVID-19. Although there has been a significant decrease in state-owned enterprises arrears, these still remain a concern and will continue to be closely monitored. Expenditure. Except for grants to public institutions, all major components of government's expenditure have increased, with significant increases seen in interest, grants to individuals, and capital expenditure. I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to speak briefly on the management of the expenditure related to the operation of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The increase in unemployment negatively impacted the performance of the health service levy, which yielded $29.3 million during the review period, a decrease of about $4.7 million compared to the same period in 2019. In addition, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital undertook the responsibility for management of the isolation and quarantine facilities to isolate existing health facilities from exposure to COVID-19. This required additional resources beyond the original budget passed in the Appropriations Act 2020. The Ministry of Finance instructed that the Ministry of Health and Wellness, on behalf of the QEH, to make adjustments to their requests for quarterly allocations via warrant in order to advance part of the $116 million in the original subvention to cover the shortfall in the health service levy and the additional expenditures on COVID-19 during the period under review. In order to properly account for these COVID-19 expenditures, a separate COVID-19 sub-program was subsequently created under the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Debt stock and debt service. Public debt outstanding at September 30th, 2020 stood at approximately $12,481.3 million, approximately 131% of GDP. This is comprised of external debt of $3,401.5 million, domestic debt of $8,944.3 million, external guarantee debt of $54.9 million, and central government arrears of $80.5 million. At September 30th, the outstanding debt was under the IMF ceiling on public debt of $13,308 million by approximately $826.7 million. It should be noted that during the first half of the financial year, the restructuring of government's debt was concluded with the restructuring of the prison facility. Government also received additional budget support of approximately $181 million from the International Monetary Fund as part of its support under the Extended Fund Facility Program. On the domestic side, the issuance of Barbados Optional Savings Scheme bonds commenced in July 2020 to ostensibly provide workers with a mechanism for savings whilst affording the government of Barbados funds for capital works projects. During the period under review, some 14 million in bonds were issued to eligible public servants, with 3.8 million being held at the end of September by public servants and the remainder sold on the secondary market. 2.9 million were bought by pensioners, 2.5 million by pension schemes, 2.4 million by individuals, and the remainder by a number of other institutional investors. Additionally, Series F bonds totaling 8.4 million were issued in respect of the settlement of tax arrears and legal fees, which predated September 2018. Approximately 502.3 thousand in bonds were liquidated for bondholders facing predominantly serious health challenges. Finally, as agreed during the domestic debt restructuring, the last overdraft facility totaling 2.5 million previously held by the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation was converted to a term loan to be serviced by the government. At September 30th, 2020, the actual expenditure on debt service amounted to approximately $373.7 million compared to the approved estimates of $444.3 million for the period April to September 2020, a difference of $75.6 million. Approximately $32.3 million of this was attributed to the redemption of savings bonds, which have matured but have not yet been presented for settlement. Approximately $14.6 million due in respect of the external sinking fund contributions. Slower projected disbursements and lower interest rates during the period compared to the original projections accounted mainly for the remainder. A review of the other financing matters indicates that government's total arrears of $81 million were substantially less than in 2019, when there were $180 million. These arrears at September 30th, 2020 were also substantially below the performance criteria target of $145 million. Based on the performance at September 30th, 2020, where revenue earned was $1,252 million and expenditure was $1,267.7 million, and projections for revenue of $1,220.8 million and expenditures of $1,531.4 million for the remainder of the financial year. Government is aiming to achieve a primary balance of minus $42.1 million, or 0.5% of GDP, at March 31st, 2021. I am obliged to you, sir.
Revert to government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I beg to move the adjournment of the sitting until Tuesday, the 8th of December at 10 a.m.
The question is that this chamber be adjourned until the 8th day of December at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 8th day of December at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.